Hey folks, back with another video. Let's dive into what story got my attention today. The Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed again ruled out a dialogue with the leaders of the defiant Tigray region on Friday, but said he is willing to speak to representatives, quote unquote, operating legally, whatever that means, there during a meeting with three African Union special envoys trying to end the deadly conflict between the federal troops and the region's forces. Now, the meeting occurred as people fled the Tigray capital in fear of an imminent assault after Abe said the army had been ordered to move in for the quote unquote final phase of an offensive to arrest the leaders of the Tigray People's Liberation Front who run the region. Abe's government and the regional, regional one each considered the other illegitimate. Now, there was no immediate word from the three African Union envoys and from and former and AU spokeswoman Eba Kalondo did not say whether the envoys can meet with the TPLF leaders, something Abe's office has rejected. The Prime Minister appreciated the AU envoys' quote unquote elderly concern and told them his government's failure to enforce the rule of law in Tigray would quote nurture a culture of impunity with devastating cost to the survival of the country, end quote, his office said. Fighting reportedly remained well outside Mekelle, a densely populated city of a half a million people who had been warned by the Ethiopian government of quote unquote no mercy if they didn't separate themselves from the TPLF leaders in time. Abe on Thursday told residents to stay indoors and disarm as the army, with tanks, was given the order to move in. His government has vowed to protect civilians. With the communications and transport links severed, it remains difficult to verify claims about the fighting from each side as of yet. Food and other supplies are running out in the Tigray region of 6 million people. The United Nations continues to urge immediate access for humanitarians that is neutral and impartial. Ethiopia's government has said a quote humanitarian access route end quote would open under the management of the country's Ministry of Peace with no details. Multiple crises are growing. Some of the tens of thousands of refugees from Eritrea who are living in camps in northern Ethiopia have been in the line of fire as fighting sweeps by them. Refugees have also told the Associated Press that Ethiopian forces near the border with Sudan are impeding people from leaving Ethiopia, while refugees crossings have largely slowed to a trickle. Ethiopia's government has not commented on that. Now, as the civil war rages, it becomes clearer that there are going to be potential crises the country will face in the coming weeks and months mainly around food and energy being the main concern. And of course, there is a whole issue of how Ethiopia will reconstruct the Tigray region after the end of the physical war. I guess in good time we'll find out how how the Ethiopian government will deal with the future of Tigray region. Moving on into Israel, the looking into the escalation between Israel and its neighbors on Thursday morning, Israel conducted strikes in eastern Syria, killing at least 19 Shia militia members, declared to be, quote, pro-Iranian fighters, end quote, by the Israeli press. As with other strikes, pro-Iranian doesn't naturally mean Iranian, as the militia members killed were confirmed by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights to be almost entirely Pakistanis. Neither the Syrian nor Israeli government has commented on the matter yet. Now, this is the third Israeli attack against the Shias in Syria in just over a week. Iran did comment on the first one, which killed mostly Iraqi and Lebanese Shias, and threatened retaliation over it. They did not specify when or how they would retaliate. Of course, the big limiter in the region on Israeli strikes in Syria isn't Iran in the first place. It is, of course, Russia. The Russians keep Israel out of the areas near their bases and have at times talked them down when they feel they risk destabilizing Syria with their attacks. Now, Israel and Syria have to, in my opinion, work out a deal for a ceasefire. I believe the war has lasted for too long, and I think that Israel can use its strength to translate into a peace deal with her neighbors. But for whatever reason, do not, they are not able to capitalize on it. Moving on into Saudi Arabia and its war in Yemen, the Saudi-led coalition has been fighting Houthi forces in Yemen, carried out series of air raids on barracks used by the Iran-aligned group in and around the Yemeni capital Sana'a on Friday, according to local residents. There was no immediate word on possible casualties. The reported airstrikes came after a Houthi missile attacked on Saudi oil facilities in the Red Sea city of Jeddah on Monday, and damage inflicted to a tanker by an explosion at a Saudi Red Sea terminal on Wednesday. The coalition said on Friday it had pinpointed and destroyed two mines in the south of the Red Sea, Saudi state TV reported, accusing the Houthis of laying the explosives. Cross-border attacks by Houthi forces, who control most of North Yemen, have escalated since late May, when a ceasefire arrangement prompted by the pandemic expired. Yemen is, in my opinion, a failure of Mohammed bin Salman, and his inability to accept the reality of the fact that he has faced defeat is probably the main reason why the Saudis are not seriously considering a peace with Yemen. I believe that Mohammed bin Salman is adamant on a victory here, because I think he believes that if the war ends in a somewhat of a defeat, that would weaken him in the eyes of his opponents inside of Saudi Arabia. However, I believe the Houthis are also responsible because during the wars in the early years of the conflict, I believe they became drunk with power in their early victories against the Yemeni government, and they did some, let's just say, mistakes that cost them any kind of, you know, goodwill, let's just say, that might have existed. Anyhow, moving on and let's looking into the Thailand. The Thai anti-government protest called for an end to coups in the Southeast Asian country on Friday, as months of street protest fueled rumors of another military takeover. Organizers called Friday's protest, quote, rehearsal to oppose a coup, end quote. Hundreds of people joined in what was the latest of almost daily demonstrations since mid-July. The Prayot's putsch was the 13th successful coup since the end of the absolute monarchy in 1932. Both Prayut and Thailand's Army Chief General Narongpan Jitkaewte this week dismissed the possibility that another coup was imminent, but that has only increased speculation that one could be on the cards. Protesters also accused the monarchy of enabling decades of military domination and have demanded curbs to the power of King Mehar Hussainn, including his power to approve any future coups. The royal palace has made no comments on the protesters, although the king said recently that they were all loved, quote unquote, all the same. Now, in my opinion, it is more probable for the Thai government to crack down on the protesters than a coup happening. The situation in Thailand has been heating up slowly between the state and the protesters, but so far no resolution has come about. As of yet, I am currently waiting on the Constitutional Court's decision on the fate of the Thai Prime Minister. That is likely going to be a game changer in the whole situation. Moving on to Belgium. 4 alleged perpetrators are set to go on trial in Belgium on Friday, around 2.5 years after a failed explosives attack on a mass rally by exiled Iranians in France. The defendants are to appear in an Antwerp court accused of planning and preparing the attack on the event, which was attended by thousands of people. Investigators say that had the attack gone ahead, it could have resulted in numerous deaths and injuries. Now, the trial is particularly controversial due to the presence among the defendants of a man accredited as a diplomat at the Iranian embassy in Vienna at the time of the crime. Investigators say the Iranian man, identified as Asadullah A, is believed to be an employee of the Iranian news ministry MOIS, whose tasks include monitoring and combating opposition groups inside and outside Iran. It is therefore considered possible that the attack plans were based on a direct government order. The large rally on June 30, 2018 in Villepinte near Paris was organized by the opposition group NCRI, which is banned in Iran. The suspected diplomat was arrested in Bavaria in July 2018 and then handed over to Belgium, a move which the Iranian government has protested. Now, this whole story, in my opinion, looks like a plot of some kind of a Hollywood movie, with all these different people moving from one country, being arrested in another, and being handed over to another country over an incident that happened in a completely different country. However, what amazes me is the fact that there are laws in the book that deal with this kind of situation. Anyhow, I am confident that the Belgian justice system will do justice, and I will most likely be keeping an eye on any development on this case. Well, that's it for this video. If you like the video, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button for future updates. Write in the comment sections your thoughts, criticism, and anything I might have missed, and I will see you in the next video.